Today's video will be a discussion of a different topic, something I was concerned about for a long time. It's about Forma souls and by extension celestial stones that we get for free if we spark. I think this is interesting because it came to a surprise to people as to why Forma souls cost less celestial stones than trade fruits. If you're free to play, you obviously may consider Forma soul as being more important. But if you spark very often, I can imagine a situation when you will have too many Forma souls and you don't know what to do with them. On the other hand, if you purchase very often the Forma soul package, I think you should probably consider trade fruits as being more valuable. Let me explain. In either race, I think IVs matter a lot more than a few merges. It's better to have a Winter Altina plus 0 plus attack instead of neutral IV plus 4, for example. And some tanks want to get closer to a min-maxing spread. This is important as I feel min-max is one feature which makes a tank or any unit age much better. For example, Fallen Julia wants either plus attack or plus resistance. My plus resistance in light season often takes 0 from Ophelia and Reinhardt and 1 digit damage from Bramimon. Power creep is running at lightning speed right now and any unit can easily become outdated quickly. Spending orbs for merges may not be a wise choice because of that. Working on a +1 tank with good IV is fine. Hence why I think trade fruits are important. We cannot have too many trade fruits. Also, trade fruits unlock possible strategies in AR offense. I will discuss this in more detail in another video. But let me show you this Younglara Shell. Being a rain cavalry with trace is very interesting for Gale Force activation. An idea I have is changing the IV to plus attack minus HP. With 3 mythics, Lara Shell has 48 HP. Bolt trap are level 2 minimum, 20 damage. And plus 5 damage from push. After engagement, she uses trace and activate the bolt trap. 25 damage, she enables a chain of Wings of Mercy. And that is just one example. So as you can see, trade fruit is really amazing. On the other hand, we have Forma souls. And I feel maybe we might have too many of those. At least that is my current situation. If we look at the history, we can see almost none of these units are really impactful relative to the meta. Not only that, the few times you might want a unit, you might get screwed by RNG. And then refusing to redeem a Forma and you're seeing many units featured who didn't have their refine yet. And you don't know if their future refine is worth picking a Forma soul right now. Last, if there is a unit worth picking, maybe you already have perfect IV and perfect build, and that is another dilemma. Okay, let's look at the all of forms from the very beginning. I will try to illustrate why I find it difficult, for me at least, to redeem my Forma souls, and maybe you are in the same situation and you can eventually relate. The first was Thracia. We had Reinhardt, the Sword of Reinhardt, we have Olwen and Leaf. I picked Leaf, but that was a mistake. Gale Force build, Flashing Blade. I couldn't realize the potential of Olwen for AR defense, especially Cav Line. Olwen is not mandatory but still a decent pick for a Cav Line even today. But this is one of a few exceptions. This Leaf is not unique, so not a good pick. The next was then Binding Blade. Well, the Binding Blade, I selected Roy because he is a big favorite of mine. But Eddiewood, even before his resplendent, was considered better than Roy. So Cecilia Winter Cecilia is definitely the winner here, the big winner. I did see a few Cecilia tank in air offense, but she quickly disappeared, vanished, so I don't really know. Next is Blazing Sword, my favorite game. And this, I would think, only Brave Lane was relevant. And this is because of the combination of Budding Bow if you get hit, if you get Budding Bow, and Sakai's Blessing. And this is definitely a very deceptive build, because it makes her very good at not dying, being danced again, hitting the backline. Today, however, we need more power to destroy the tanks, and Savior is everywhere. Still, she was a good pick while it lasted, and it lasted for a good time. Next is Sacred Stones. I mean, well, that was a complete joke, a disappointment. I picked Erika because I had too many souls at that time, but I never used her for anything. I shouldn't have used the Forma soul, and yeah, this was stupid. Next wasn't much better. Path of Radiance. None of these units were interesting, and the only one which could be maybe of interest was Valentine Ike, but he comes already with Destined Counter Special Fighter, which is close to being his best build already, and even so, Ike is not really good. Next is Radiant Dawn. You can tell none of these are very useful. I picked Mikaya because she was interesting because she's a dancer having double effectiveness. Yet I never used her in AR defense, which was my initial plan. She needs IP, and even with a special ready, she's not dealing much damage because of her stats. I could also pick Mia here, but she's not good for either race defense. A restore healer needs a high attack speed spread, and Mia doesn't have a stats to kill, and restore requires free movement to make it more consistent. Just to get Grand Scratcher is not justified, especially on a 2 movement healer with no attack speed spread. And then we have Awakening. Well, this one, obviously, everyone should have picked Lucina with Outpost tie or even post tie, Joint Drive Speed, Life and Death 4. She was the only one relevant. But maybe you have already, again, a good build on Lucina, and maybe you didn't need this one. But she was very interesting. Chrome wasn't good, and even after Refine, he's not coming back. I didn't try to get Wallart because we don't know if Wallart Future Refine is good or bad. Next is Fate. I mean, this one is quite bad, really bad. I used it on female Corinne only because I have too many souls, and I never used her for anything. In fact, I used her once in Arena Assault, and I remember this. She died to a blue enemy. I never used her again. Never. Next is Free Houses. So, none of these units are useful. Maybe except Edelgard for Evil Rays Offense, Gale Force. As you can see, I didn't pick the Forma. This is because I could not get Times Pulse. Sometimes there is a unit you want, you need, and you get bad RNG, you refuse to redeem your souls and they start to collect dust. And this is what happened here. Tokyo Mirage then was next. Well, I picked Tsubasa Mamori because, well, favorite of mine, but the fact is the only interesting unit in fact was Kiria only. She has a great potential in AR defense with mirror or steady impact, time pulse or giant drive attack for C slot, but only with Infantry Pulse setup, so it's not for everyone. You may not even use her if you don't have Infantry Pulse defense. And now there is heroes. Well, I didn't pick anyone here, but obviously the only unit worth picking was Bridal Fjorm, and only Bridal Fjorm. Reason why I didn't choose her is because I don't like isolation. I respect dancers and I want to allow them to do their job, which is dancing. But otherwise I can understand why people wanted Bridal Fjorm. She is useful in either raise offense. Even considering the 7 slot trap, there is a chance you can still, if you play well, activate the isolation. But this is just my personal feeling. I don't like her, but I admit she is useful if you really need it. Now next is Shadow Dragon. And a lot of people talked about this, the Forma Minerva. Probably the only one worth it. Some people also talked about Spring Pala. Spring Pala is meant to imitate Air Force in Astra season, but I am wondering if she has enough attack to kill reliably. As for Minerva, I am kind of disappointed that no one has ever mentioned Geo. As far as I know, the moment Geo was released, Minerva died. Geo has better offensive spread than Geo, and she has desperation in her weapon, which means you can run Brash Assault in B slot while having the Sacred Seal 3. Very effective for AR. Much better than Minerva, so she's definitely worthless. Next is the Shadows of Valencia. Celica, I picked her, but she's completely irrelevant now, regardless of the B slot. I was under the impression Celica was the best, but in fact I was completely wrong. Sonia is probably more interesting here because of a cooldown special. You can use Life and Death 4, Wind Sweep, Joint Drive Attack, Life and Death Seal, plus Attack Trade Fruit, and Max Dragon Flowers. She might be very strong in AR defense with AoE special. Dark Excalibur plus 10 damage applies to AoE, which I didn't know before, and I learned this recently, so this alone is insane. Worth a Forma, so I think Sonia is probably the best unit ever featured in all of Form. It makes your defense good. I talked about this in other videos, but I will say it again. Ophelia is still very strong in AR defense because AoE is the best way to destroy Savior. And Sonia is the green counterpart of Ophelia. Next, Genealogy. So we have Lasse and Shannon. Well, the problem I have here is that while they are quite good, they are not good enough for either raise. Lasse doesn't have null follow-up. Shannon has no resistance. And then we start again with Thracia. And obviously, Mareeta is the biggest star, the only logical choice. But I do not see many players using Mareeta today, and the reason is obvious. ARD units just became a lot more difficult to kill. And now, Dual Leaf is everywhere. So, using a Trade Fruit plus Speed IV for a unit which is not easy to use is hard to justify. from my perspective. And this is surprising because Mareeta is still an excellent unit, one of the best infantry tank along with Fallen Ike. But the meta is changing really fast. So I think by now you understand the problem. The few times a very good unit is featured, maybe you get screwed by RNG or you already have this unit built. This is not to say all of Form is bad. IS has been very generous lately. Forma was only available as all package. Now you get them free if you spark 3 times. But at the same time, it's obvious IS doesn't want to break the meta by offering for free dangerous tools for all of us. Some units definitely have some potential, like Sonya, which was a big mistake on my part, and I think I regret it. And then maybe Mareeta, Kiria and Bridal Fjorm. Probably eventually useful in either raids, but it doesn't happen very often. This is why in the end I am thinking if you start collecting multiple Forma souls, it becomes obvious that Treadfoot is an interesting alternative for your Celestial Stone. As I've explained, we cannot have too many Treadfoots and they unlock some very interesting possibilities in either raids. So that's it for today's discussion. I will see you next time and thanks.